I am Pops, and yes, rewatching Star Trek, the original series, and this week is the alternative factor. So if you want to know my take from a guy who's not a big Trekkie, here we go. The alternative factor. So if any of you don't know, I'm not much of a Star Trek fan. I've been rewatching the original series, trying to garner a lot more fan appreciation. This is the kind of thing that we watch a lot every night. My mom, every evening at dinner, Star Trek, the original series would be on. So some episodes I remember, some episodes I've kind of seen over the course of my life since then, other callbacks from other things, obviously the movies. So this is one, though, didn't know anything about. Couldn't remember one iota, didn't think much about it, and then gave you my thoughts. So the first thing I wanted to ask, and this is kind of a silly, rudimentary thing a little bit, but I just noticed in the opening, is it does is there a reason the Enterprise almost always cascades from left to right across the screen? Is there something to that? I just noticed in this episode what happened was I was watching it on my phone and my phone was laid down. So when I moved it, it was moving the opposite direction. And it occurred to me, I think it mostly moves from left to right. I don't know. Silly nuances like that. So the episode starts off a little on the slow side for me, where they have this weird anomaly that sort of pops up. And it was actually kind of one of the cheesiest effects that we've had today. There have been some really, really cool stuff that was done. Even last episode with the Gorn planet looking green and stuff. I thought there were some space features, some different things that they have done that I think worked really well. This effect, and then as it kind of evolves to the episode where it's more like the spinning, it almost is like a knockoff. Well, I guess this predates, right? It predates the Phantom Zone from Superman, but I felt like it maybe Twilight Zone. It's like I don't quite get what they were going for in that regard. And early on, I didn't really know at all what was going on. We basically have an anomaly, dramatically affects everything in the universe. No one can explain it. Spock and Kirk are going back and forth. Sensors can't pick up things, and then all of a sudden they pick up this humanoid on this planet that was just momentarily completely deserted. And that's kind of the premise, is an unpacking of who is this individual, what does it mean. They come down, they find this little ship, they find this guy. His name is Lazarus. Here he goes. um, and we'll get to this. I still want to forget in case I don't put a pin in it, and kind of the makeup in this episode, his fake beard and stuff, all of that is some of the worst to date. Like, there are massive continuity problems in this episode. I feel like they have gone back to film some fill-in scenes later when he beams down to the planet, and the kind of I don't say a confrontation, but definitely a back and forth with Kirk right before that. Makeup's on, makeup's off. The amount of beard. At one scene, he has no beard on. At one point, yeah, I just noticeable stuff that this show didn't really make a lot of those kinds of mistakes in some of the other episodes. I thought this one was pretty shoddily done. The other thing too is the story for this is like word salad. It's a bunch of scientific mumbo gumbo that we're going to have from Lazarus. He's going to go back to the Enterprise. We're going to have this sort of back and forth with the crew about what's actually going on, trying to explain it. Here's the message from Starfleet Command about affecting the entire universe. And this was a very strange move. The thing is it could be an invasion. It could just be something. By the way, we're not going to give you any ships. We're going to pull all of our ships back and let the Enterprise. And Kirk's like, "Well, doesn't that just make us bait?" And it's like, bum bum bum. And I'm like, or it just makes the Federation dumb. Like I was, this was very strange. I couldn't get my head around what was happening and why it was happening. Pretty rare in Star Trek has it been this bad. Then we cut back to the interrogation with Kirk and Lazarus. They're going to try to parse out what's actually going on, asking questions, interrogating. And he has this sort of like conversation about this thing that he's fighting against, this being. And then this plays out with this weird spinny thing. And then they have this effect and they're walking around and then they fight. You see these two silhouettes fighting with one another. So I feel like maybe, is this an old script that just got produced later? Or is this an effect that someone came up with and they tried to write it in? I don't feel it worked at all. I don't know. Maybe it's just me with the whole Phantom Zone knockoff, weird X-ray blue filter. It's like filters over the lens rather than like, I don't know. It's just everything feels off. Like nothing felt right. Then when we fast forward a little bit in the story, we get Lazarus who has this injury on the right side of his forehead, and that comes into play later when we start to see Lazarus having this effect, this sort of like modulation that we later learn is like a different version of himself. But we find that this Lazarus that then shows up doesn't have the cut. Of course, they mock McCoy as being crazy, which again, hasn't McCoy been mocked before and always been proven right? Like we had it with the Alice in Wonderland episode. We had it with it just McCoy's not wrong. Like, why are we always jump to the conclusion? And maybe this is part of why later on in the series, especially with the motion pictures, we see Kirk and McCoy so closely bonded because Bones has a track record of constantly being on the nose. So there's quite a bit of filler here with Lazarus and him trying to get the dilithium crystals, what the impact would be for the Enterprise. I feel like they kind of gobbledygook their way through what the science is here. I like the confrontation with Kirk, by the way. It's like, no, we're not doing that. And then again, this is what the effect looks like when they kind of change places and you see like the crazy irrational version and then this version of him going around. He doesn't have the bandage on his head. And by the way, I didn't mention her earlier in the episode, which people always mention Uhura as being like this black representation in Trek, whatever. There were others. This one was great. She was really very believable in her little role, her little cameo. So I don't know if she shows up very many other episodes, but I like this lieutenant. She was pretty good. So here's the shot, or one of the shots, where you can see he has minimal to no beard makeup on at all during this interrogation. There's something in the close up where you can see just a little bit, but then later, yeah, it's like it doesn't look like it's there at all. And then they let him go off by himself when they beam down. So they're going to further go through their exploration and trying to figure out what's going on by beaming back down and going over to the ship and investigating different things the sensors are picking up or not picking up. And yet they let this guy wander around the Enterprise by himself, and now they're letting him wander around the planet by himself. None of those things make any sense. And in fact, this is one of the episodes I actually thought a whole lot of crewmen were going to be gone because when they beamed down, we actually got the red shirt phenomenon. We got like 4 red shirts in the security crew. We got a whole bunch of people beaming down, and no, we didn't have anything happen to them. So we go through more of these effects with the thing that's happening with Lazarus before Kirk and Spock basically have this quick exchange where they kind of figure out, well, I guess there's 2 of them, Jim. He claims he's really a time traveler, and there's a matter and antimatter. There's sort of like a doorway, if you will. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Aren't you contradicting the science that you've already created? Because I thought the matter antimatter thing had kind of already been worked out. Wasn't that part of the increased warp propulsion at one point, or time jumping and different things that they've already kind of talked about some of these things, but this episode feels like they're contradicting things. And it seems again like this is maybe an early script that got shelved and then they need the content and then it kind of got pushed through. So you guys will have to help me figure out if that's actually the case. I have no context. I don't remember anything about this episode whatsoever. By the way, there's a really dumb comment by Spock. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but he has this comment about how the sensors couldn't pick up this thing, so therefore it must not be from this universe. And I'm like, okay, hold on. You are well into not only your time with Pike and the adventures that you previously had, but just in the brief amount of time that we've been on this original series adventure with you, Spock, you have ventured all sorts of beings that we cannot explain, all sorts of powers that we cannot conceive. And yet you're trying to say because your sensors couldn't pick it up, your default is alternate parallel universe. Really badly written line for Spock. Spock pretty rarely is out of line and out of balance with what the rules and the science and the structure. Again, logic drives everything. But that line, oh, that was a terribly written line. It just jumped out at me like, wait, what? And I rewound it and listened to it again. Like, ugh, that doesn't make any sense. So okay, so it culminates with Lazarus somehow sabotaging engineering to create a distraction so he can steal some of the crystals. He beams himself down. This is him putting them in his little ship, and then Kirk beaming down to intercede. And Kirk is the one who actually gets to the ship in time and gets sucked into this little void. I don't know what the void is. I don't even know what to call it. Here's the alternate universe where the ship exists, and we have the sane Lazarus who has, I don't know, I at this point, my brain was sort of like shut off on how dumb all of this meant because now we're in like alternate universes, time travel, matter versus antimatter. We've thrown everything against the wall thinking that it will make sense. And it culminates with Go back, Jim, throw him into the ship, and then we will be thrust in the same place in the same ships and whatever. Therefore, you can destroy it, and that will save both universes. And I'm like, okay, hold on. None of that makes any sense. So if this guy was willing to sacrifice himself like this, why wouldn't he just off himself? And then the other person is irrelevant. Like it doesn't matter. He's either trapped on one side of the door or not. Or more sanely, just blow up the ships. Like go and blow up the ships. Don't interact with the other Lazarus. Just blow the ships up. So then it closes because the ships evidently become part of the key for the door to work. And by the way, this being the dilithium crystals just made me laugh. Like it just felt such a letdown. Brief little uh, scuffle. He gets sucked into the void. Kirk says, use phasers. They use phasers. And then they have this brief interaction about saving all the universes, multiverses, antimatter, all that, except for the Lazarus that are out there. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. What a mess of an episode. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys set me straight because as the noob, I'm not getting this one. As the noob, I'm like, okay, this was scientific gobbledygook, things that break the rules that they normally have, things that don't make sense in the same episode, and we didn't get any appearance by Sulu or Scotty. By the way, like I felt like we had all these random crew people, and we actually had the new lieutenant. I don't remember her name, but it's like were we just not giving Uhura more to do? Like I felt like just everything was on the cheap with this one. This is like it's weird that it's coming along now because it feels like it's something from the earlier days that's been pushed to now, but I could be wrong. This is now according to the production list, according to the corporeal life form. So all right, you guys get me straight. Tell me where this ranks for you. What you guys think of it? What am I missing? What am I getting wrong? Appreciate all of that. I go into these cold. I don't do a lot of research or anything like that. Just let you have it. So here we go. Take care, everybody. I'm Pops.